Hello and thank you so much for joining me for some Saturday night crafting, where I aim to bring you some new techniques every single Saturday night that you could do along with me and create hopefully with whatever you've got in your stash and have some fun getting creative. Tonight we are doing the faux linen effect. I have not really properly done this technique before. I've done kind of a variation. I played with tissue paper. I'll try and link that in my description box for you. But I had 5 techniques with tissue paper and I sort of did this kind of technique there, but it was more so just playing with the texture of the tissue paper and trying out different elements on it. Tonight we are going to be focusing on creating sort of a linen fabric effect to the front of our card, just giving our card front really beautiful, gorgeous texture with hopefully stuff you've got in your stash. I'm using standard white tissue paper, but you can use whatever you've got to hand, so you could use colored tissue paper if you've got it. Just remember it might affect the colors of your ink when stamping. It might kind of alter it. So I'm going to cut my front card panels down by about 1.5 centimeters. So I've got a nice little border to play with and I can kind of layer up that front panel a bit. I'm going to do 3 today. So I'm chopping down my little panels so they're ready to go. And then I've cut my tissue paper to be bigger than my panel because we are going to add that texture in. So you want it to be bigger than your panel. These are the colors I'm going to mostly use for today. They're my Memento inks. I always forget they're in my drawer, but that's what I'm going to use for today. And I'm primarily using this stamp set here from Gina. I just bought this week and I'm really excited about it. I love that it's got a die for every single stamp in it. So I can't wait to play with this and try this out. The stamps look gorgeous. This is like right up my street and I love the font. I haven't seen font like this before on a stamp set, so I'm really excited about it. I started by wanting to add some text into the background, and I thought if I use this birthday wishes stamp set as the sentiment on the front of the card, and I've got this cute little subtle kind of wording in the background, that it might look really pretty, but it didn't really work because the Simon Hurley ink is so light that once it dried fully, you can't even see it at all. It doesn't even show up. So if you want to use some font in your background to add a bit more character to the front of it, then I would suggest going with a slightly darker ink than what I've chosen because I can't see it in the end, but it doesn't matter, I just carry on. Now the whole point of this effect is we're going to fill up the background, so I'm using more solid image stamps today rather than outline stamps, and I find the solid stamps just look better. It fills up the background a lot more, otherwise you have a lot of white space. But if you've got solid image stamps, then it's quite fun because you can add in lots of color to it and you can really fill out that background. And I love a stamp set like this because it comes with the little stamps as well as the big ones. Now, I was trying to work out how much stamping I needed to do, and I was struggling to work out where I needed to stamp up to. So I decided to actually just trace my card panel underneath the tissue paper on a scrap bit of paper, which worked perfectly because tissue is so thin, you can see right through it. And then that way I knew exactly where I was stamping and how much I needed to stamp, and then I just went ahead and filled it all in. And I was watching a movie while doing it, so it's really nice and relaxing, no overthinking and stressing about it. Now, when I was done each of these panels, I did leave them to make sure that they fully dried, because when we go and add that texture in, we could actually compromise and damage our beautiful work by smearing all the ink. So make sure you leave it for a few minutes to dry. And I do have that scrap bit of paper underneath my tissue because it's so thin, it bleeds through very easily and you don't want to wreck your work surface or anything that you might have underneath there. Now for my next card, I decided to go with my favorite inks, these Lisa Horton interference inks. They are a metallic shiny ink. So I did the exact same thing again. I stamped all my stamps down and you can see that gorgeous shine and shimmer coming through. Now these inks would be so much fun to do on black tissue paper as well. They change color when you put them on black. If you saw my last video, you can see how they look on black cardstock. But if you've got black tissue paper, those inks would be stunning. And I'm kicking myself now for not doing one with black tissue paper because I think it would have been really cool. So here's where we're going at our texture. We've done that beautiful background and we're just going to scrunch the daylights out of it. Now it depends on how much texture you want in the background and how you like it to look. I did 3 variations. So I scrunched it, left it a little bit crinkled, and then another one I flattened out more, and then one I flattened out quite a lot. So you can kind of see, hopefully, the difference between the sort of 3 amounts of scrunching. I'm using a glue stick today because I found that was the easiest way to stick this down and have it stick nice and quick and easy. You could use double-sided tape. I would not use liquid glue. With liquid glue, if you are using dye inks, that means they are water reactive. And in a lot of liquid glues, they're quite obviously watery. And so you're going to get that coming through the tissue paper, number one, and being really, really sticky. And number two, it will make those inks bleed because it's very, very thin and very delicate. So I would suggest using a glue stick to stick down your tissue paper, or using double-sided tape would be the best. If you use double-sided tape, I would recommend doing the whole entire front of your panel with the double-sided tape. Otherwise, you're going to see that through it as well. When I'm done, I'm just adding a whole bunch of glue to the back to kind of get all those bits to stay down, and then I leave that to the side to dry. So that's the first panel, kind of semi-scrunchied. This is the second one with my beautiful shimmery ink. And for this one, I'm going to make it a lot more kind of scrunchy. So I'm kind of scrunching it down onto the front when I'm placing it down and giving it more texture than before. So I'm kind of just pinching it a little bit and wiggling it onto the front. And this is why you want a panel that's slightly bigger, because then it gives you the option to scrunch it as much as you like. So it's a cool way to get that kind of faux linen texture going onto your card front. So for the last one, I thought I would really flatten it out after I had scrunched it up to see how it looked. And this is the one I liked the least because it did not have that much texture to it. It just looked like slightly wrinkly paper. It wasn't that exciting. It didn't have that much of a texture to it. So for me, I like the other two more. I do know that a lot of people like a smoother look to the front, and you do lose some of the character of the flowers when you scrunch it a bit more. So all I'm doing for this one, again, is sticking it down with my glue stick, flipping it over, and then folding the sides in. So here on the left is the more textured one, and on the right is the one that I flattened out a lot more. So let's go ahead and turn these three panels into cards, just to give you some inspiration on what to do. I found this cardstock in my stash and thought it matched that red really, really nicely. So I went ahead and cut myself a panel to go behind it to kind of pull out that white a bit, and then also complement the white of my sentiment that I had pre-die cut out and stamped. It was actually a leftover from last week's video. I'm adding some foam tape to the back of that second panel so that pops up off my card a little bit to give it a little bit more dimension. Once I've got those release sheets off the back of the foam tape, I can go ahead and pop that on the front of my card panel. And this is the stamp set and die that I used to create the sentiment for the front of that card. I decided to pop the sentiment up as well, so I added some foam stickers to the back of the sentiment and then pop that on the front of the card. To finish off my card, I decided to grab some bits of sparkle. So I've got these cute little gems from Alina Crafts on AliExpress, and they're gorgeous iridescent flat back gems. So I'm going to go ahead and pop some glue down on my card, and then I use my homemade DIY pick me up tool, which is just blue tack on a chopstick. It helps to pick up those little tiny fiddly gems, and then I can pop them down onto the blobs of glue. So super simple, quick, easy way to kind of finish off a card, add a bit of sparkle, have your sentiment, and it's ready to go. So for my second card, I did it off screen. I colored a bit of blue cardstock, cut it out with an oval die. I used a scalloped die for the background with the holographic card, layered up my cardstock with a colored layer, holographic layer, and then onto a card base, added a few gems, and that was that. For this one, I decided to go with more of a fun little edge, so I just cut the panels off the side, and then I used the coordinating dies and stamps to create these flowers, and then pop them up with some foam, and then added a sentiment. Here you can see that texture up close. It's really gorgeous, and I love the shimmery inks. They are so pretty. I finished this one off with some Nuvo drops in the sort of clear, I think it's called like Snowflake or something like that, with white blizzard drops. So those are my three cards today. I hope you got inspired and had some fun. And as a quick reminder, my links are always in the description box below for you. If you would like to join me over on Facebook, you can join my group there and share your creations with me. Now, I am also in the next card making summit. Again, this is the stress-free card making summit. This will be the last one of the year. I probably won't do another one until this time next year again. This one is my favorite one. This is 5 supplies or less Christmas card making. So it's fantastic when you're on a budget or you're stuck for ideas. You should be able to find lots of inspiration from this summit. The link for that is down in the description box below. It is a free summit for that weekend. All you need to do is click the link and then fill in your information, and the whole summit will be over there on that website for you to view. It will not be on my YouTube channel, and you will not be able to see the creations that I've made over there anywhere else but that summit. So it's well worth joining. I think you have an absolute blast and get loads of inspiration. Thank you for joining me today. Have a fantastic weekend. Bye.